Meaning, how can we look at all of these things, at the blessings and the ceremony itself, in terms of what is the inner meaning of all of these things? So maybe we'll start with the first question, the biggest question. We know that Jews are buried in shrouds in the ground. So, what does it mean? Why do we bury the dead in the ground? Yeah, we really see that the Jewish burial ceremony is very simple. You don't keep the dead at home for several days like it's done in Christianity, and you don't dress the deceased up in nice clothes and so on, but you have to bury the corpse as quickly as possible, the very same day. And it's preferable for it to rot in the grave as quickly as possible, which is a very strange custom. There are certain ethnic groups in Judaism that put quicklime in the grave so that the body will decay more quickly. And it's the complete opposite to what the Egyptians did. And you don't build things like Lenin's mausoleum and so on, but the complete opposite. And it's something that's been with us for thousands of years. I think that this is something that comes from Adam HaRishon, literally meaning Adam the first, because it's according to our spiritual roots that date back almost 6,000 years ago. I don't know what happened before that, but this is what's customary. So, the thing is, when I came to Rabash, my teacher, maybe 2 months later, he had these 3 students who were brothers, and their mother passed away. She was old, and when I used to go from the city of Rehovot to the city of Bnei Brak to study, then the Rabash said you have to go and visit them because they're doing the Shiva, the 7 days of mourning after the death of a family member. So I came there where they're doing the Shiva, and the brothers, they're sitting there, and I don't feel that they're in sorrow or in mourning or anything. It's not that they're telling jokes or anything, but they're speaking freely about everything. I sat there a bit for a few minutes, then I left. I said what I had to say. And when later on I asked Rabbi Hillel Gelbstein, who used to teach me, he said, so there's nothing about it. He himself worked in the cemetery. He said, there's nothing about it. He said, I represent several big companies here in Israel that if someone passes away, then I accompany them. And he says, everything's very simple and so on. Afterwards, I went to the cemetery a few times in order to take him to the lesson from work. And I saw how they relate to all these things. Well, those that work in the cemetery, that's obvious. They're known as easygoing people. It's a result of habit. But when I started studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, I also saw that the attitude towards it is completely different than what's customary in life. Over time, we caught many things from different religions, different habits, different attitudes, where you relate to the body. But we relate to the soul. Judaism relates to the soul, not to the body. Therefore, the body lives, it dies, it's there, it's gone. We're not talking about the body at all. If we're talking about life and death, we're talking only about what's going on with the soul. We're not taking the body into consideration. I remember I accepted it And I looked at it in a very serious way. I wanted for this to be my attitude towards life. It's something very basic. And when we say body, what do we mean? We mean a person's desire. It's the 10 sfirot that are corrected in order to bestow in correspondence with the Creator. That's called a person's body. If the body is in order to bestow, is directed at love of others, then it means that the body is alive. If it's directed to serve itself, it's called a dead body. So we're talking only about the desire, not about the biological body, about these tissues that we call body. Meaning there is something that's called a live desire and something called a dead desire? Yes. A live desire, it means that it works for the benefit of others, and a dead desire works for the benefit of itself. And it has nothing to do with the physical body. No. So where is that desire when a person's alive? Both forms of the desire, alive and dead. When the body is alive, a person feels that the body is alive. When the body dies, then a person ceases to feel anything because he lives inside the body. But if he arranges his desire in such a way that they'll be directed for the benefit of others, then he rises above the egoistic desire and exits it, rises above it. And then he starts feeling another reality that exists outside of his desire, so-called outside of his body. He is living as if outside of his body, outside of the egoistic desires. And this means that he crosses over to the next world. Just to understand, there's a person, he's alive, and inside of him there are two options. Either he has a live desire, which is to bestow and love, or his desire is dead, even though that his body is alive. Right. Therefore it says the wicked, in their lifetime, are called dead, meaning because their desire is actually dead, even though that the body is alive. Yeah. Okay, now what happens to a person whose body passes away, but his desire is already alive? He keeps on living in the desire. So what, there's like a split? Of course. Before his body passes away, in his desire, he's already living a life called the next world. Where is this desire? Because we're used to the desire being inside the body. No, these two things are unrelated, the desire and the body. The body, it's physiology. It's the animate level. It's not the human level. What's the connection between a live desire and the soul? A live desire is the soul. This is actually called the soul. Yeah. Alive means that it's for the benefit of others, that he wants to bestow love and so on to others. Yes. Okay. Still, let's try and understand why, according to Judaism, a person that passes away, his body is buried in the ground. There's this saying, from dust you came, to dust you shall return. Yeah, it's according to the root and branch. This is how we behave with the body. The truth is, there's nothing special about our physical, biological body. There's nothing good or bad about it, but it's a piece of flesh that operates by the instincts of the animate level. You simply have to bury it for it to decay and go back to dust. Why dust? Why not throw it in the ocean? You can do that too. Why not burn it? You can do that too. Obviously, but why the dust? Because dust, it's a matter of root and branch. Dust, it means that there's nothing left from it. It disintegrates into the basic elements of nature. So the body comes from dust. What does that mean again? That my body comes from the dust? From the elements of simple matter, meaning different elements that became compounds and made this thing called a body. Yeah. In the past, people were buried in caves. They waited for some time until the body dried up, and the only thing left were bones, and you put the bones in some kind of a vessel, you close that vessel, and that's it. Do the bones have some kind of a meaning? No. It all comes from the root and branch. There's the dry bones and so on. Yeah, I mean, is there a difference between flesh and bones? Biologically wise, no. No, I'm not asking biologically wise. Internally. Internally, we have mocha, atzamot, basar, gidim, ve'or, marrow, bone, flesh, tendons, and skin. There are differences between the desires, but it has nothing to do with our body. These desires have different kinds of corrections. So these organs represent different desires. They don't represent. This is how they're called. According to the parts of the soul, this is how the parts of the body are called. They're named after them, but that's the only connection. So I'm trying to understand that live desire that wants to bestow. It also has like a kind of a body that's parallel, that's called the 10 sfirot, a soul that's parallel to our physical body. What do you mean by parallel? That's the question. There's no parallel. There are people that have it, and there are people that don't have it. People that have a spiritual body, corrected desires, desires that are corrected and are in order to bestow to others, are called Kabbalists. And those that don't have such desires are deemed as beasts. As it says, all are deemed as beasts. They live only on the animate level. They live only for the benefit of their own body.